Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, as you know, and today I am going to be reviewing The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3. First of all, I thought it was really interesting. I think the biggest question going in from last week was, is Bo going to be honest to Din Djarin about the mythosaur, and just whether or not she would tell him the truth about that? And also, I think her mindset about everything is still kind of in the air. She knew she couldn't just accept the Darksaber from Din, because that's what she did when Sabine gave it to her during the events of Rebels, and obviously that did not work out. But she also didn't tell him or his covert about the mythosaur. So I'm wondering if she plans to go and do her own thing and try to claim the mythosaur maybe, while Amanda has the Darksaber, and use that as a challenge to him being the rightful ruler. She might also be trying to get it so that she can get her Mandalorians that scattered after the events of Season 2's finale to work for her again and reunite them. Also, y'all, this starfighter chase scene was super cool. I remember when I was reacting to the trailers for this season, one of the questions I had and that some of y'all raised in the comments was whether or not Din was going to be as expert of a fighter with a starfighter as he was with a gunship. And if Din didn't prove that well enough in Season 3, Episode 1, he proved it for sure in this episode. He destroyed 4 out of 6 of those initial TIE interceptors that attacked him and Bo. Also, y'all, it was just really interesting to see Castle Kryze get destroyed. I just didn't expect that, and I kind of felt sad in a way, because after knowing all of that family's history from the Clone Wars and everything, it was just sad to see it go. And then Din Djarin even saved Bo-Katan's life by snapping her out of her bloodlust and escaping. Now, I think a lot of people are going to take issue with the middle of the episode, but I do think seeing all of those TIE interceptors in the outer regions, that a lot of what's happening with the New Republic, they're demilitarizing, they're not understanding how big of a threat the Empire still is. That even goes back to Season 2, Episode 6 of The Mandalorian, where Boba Fett flies up in his ship and goes through the clouds and sees Moff Gideon's ship. And even he, who lives and operates in the Outer Rim, can't believe that the Empire is there. He says that they're back, but they never left. Not really. So, I don't know. It's going into, we talked about this in the trailer reaction videos, but it really is going into doing its best in the live action shows to improve the sequel trilogies and make them make sense, since the movies themselves were not planned out and did not do the work to make the payoffs make sense. Going into this middle section, you guys, I'm not sure what to say, because a lot of it is stuff I really liked, but it just did not mesh well, like with the beginning and ending of the episode. Like, the jumping around was a little rough. But I will admit, I did enjoy seeing Coruscant after Return of the Jedi. That is really cool. I was always curious what it would be like. In the newer version of Return of the Jedi that has extra scenes added on, and like Hayden Christensen as Anakin rather than the original Darth Vader actor. So in the new scene where they show Coruscant celebration in Return of the Jedi when the Death Star's blown up, you can see the Jedi Temple in the distance, which is really cool. So I thought it was really cool that we got to see the Opera House from Revenge of the Sith return. If you don't remember, this is where Anakin rushes in to meet Palpatine, and it's where Palpatine asks Anakin if he's ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Another really cool thing I took note of was the Coruscant Elite's lifestyle hasn't seemed to change much, whether it's been the Republic, the Empire, the Rebels, or the New Republic ruling over them. The ruling body hasn't affected the pampered lifestyle of the elite there. Another thing that was really interesting was Elia Kane betrays Pershing. So I don't know if they're trying to show like she has been so indoctrinated to the New Republic now for longer than him, that she was basically just in the amnesty program to spy on the other Imperials and let the New Republic know if any of them were still harboring Imperial beliefs. I'm not sure if that's the angle they were taking, or if she's like a super in the New Republic as a spy for Moff Gideon, and she's like a super loyalist to him that was just hiding in the amnesty program and trying to hopefully recruit Pershing. But then it doesn't make sense why she would try to help him get this. I know he said all he needs to start was the mobile lab station, but I don't get, if I'm right about the first thing, why would she be doing that? Like the little baby ass operation. I don't get that. So I'm not really sure what they were going for there. Another really cool thing, y'all. So in the Knights of the Old Republic video game, it's not canon, but in that game, you can go down to the very surface, the real surface of Coruscant. So I really did enjoy this snippet of the scene where you get to see Coruscant's highest mountain peak, and it just barely tips into part of the city, part of the top of the city. I thought that was pretty cool. Also, I feel like there were a lot of cool details that this driver told Pershing when it was taking him back to the amnesty facility. So while I say this episode was one of the weaker ones in the whole show for sure, I do have to admit I like all the little details. I want to call them Easter eggs. They're not Easter eggs, but like, if this was Star Trek or something, I would call it a horrible episode. But I will say the lighter episodes of Star Wars that aren't expanding the huge overall story, but that are more showing the little corners of the galaxy and little tiny details. That's what I've said before was what I liked about Jedi Fallen Order. All these little backwater background planets you can explore and find out little details about, discover every single corner. I thought that was awesome. So I'm just saying, I think this is a 30-second scene where the droid is just. I'll put some on subtitles on the screen, but I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was talking about a museum of extinct creatures in the Star Wars galaxy, their holograms with info about them, and also I think another museum and then another cool location. I just thought that was really cool. So it's like people on Coruscant could still learn about the mythosaur, for example. Maybe that museum has a mythosaur display. So I did think that was pretty cool. Then in the end of the episode, we find out that Din did trust Bo enough to tell her where the secret cohort was. Paz Vizsla did not seem pleased to see them at all. I thought it was really cool to find out that the armor already had part of the living water. She had like her own little well of it, kind of, like some that she had saved from all those years ago. And then when she poured more in it, it mixed with it well enough for her to be able to tell that Mando really did bring her the real living waters. I thought that was pretty cool. And then everyone accepts Mando and Bo back into the cohort. But we get to see Paz just kind of looking on. And with the helmets, you can't tell what he's thinking, but you can kind of tell what he's thinking. I'm leaning towards he's jealous and pissed off and just angry in general at the Mandalorian. And like we saw in the Book of Boba Fett, either his father or his uncle, Pre Vizsla, the Darksaber was in their family for hundreds of years at the least. So I think he still probably feels like it's his birthright, even though he lost to Mando in combat. But according to their cohort, he lost to Mando in combat while he was an apostate. So maybe he truly believes in his head that he's still the rightful owner. These aren't episode recaps that talk about every detail, so I guess the last new thing to bring up is just a small line that I think a lot of the general audience that aren't super nerds might overlook. The old man that is Dr. Pershing's shift lead or whatever at his job mentions that they are already behind with their work due to the demilitarization of the New Republic, keeping statistics around that. And that is such a huge mistake. I have to say, I really enjoyed all of Mon Mothma's scenes and political Game of Thrones style stuff she had going on during Andor Season 1. I like Mon Mothma a lot as a character. The live action actress does such a good job. I mean, seriously. She seriously is great. I wonder if they'll give her more scenes in The Mandalorian during this time period after Return of the Jedi, not just in Andor. But while I do like Mon Mothma's political Game of Thrones stuff she's doing in Andor, there's a series, let me see if I can find it. There's a trilogy of books called Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. I've read the first two. I haven't had the pleasure of finishing the third book yet. But one of the biggest plot points in that book, going into explaining the First Order's rise to power, I do think the episode here is doing a good job at that. Because in this book, one of Mon Mothma's biggest mistakes is being better than the Empire. What I mean by that is she starts demilitarizing the rebellion as it is becoming the New Republic. She starts demilitarizing way too early. Way too early. While we get a little bit of, I think in real history, Nazi German scientists got to work for America after World War II. We get a little bit of that with Imperials in this episode. And man, so in the Aftermath trilogy, there's this conversation. It follows completely new characters, but every now and then there's a chapter with Leia or Mon Mothma or Admiral Akbar. And there's this chapter where Mon Mothma is talking to Admiral Akbar about demilitarization, and he is telling her how bad of an idea it is and that he refuses to let his portion of the New Republic fleet be demilitarized. And she basically tells him that it's not his choice. And then he says that he's going to flee with his fleet if she plans to dismantle them. And so she tries to have New Republic guards put him on house arrest. And then, as we see in the sequel trilogy, how Leia had eventually left the New Republic to start the Resistance because she could see the danger and the First Order forming, Admiral Akbar was part of what left with her, with his fleet. So I don't know that we'll get to see Admiral Akbar or his fleet leave the New Republic because they aren't willing to do what's necessary during The Mandalorian or any of these live-action shows that take place between episodes 6 and 7. But I really do think a lot of fans are going to overlook that line. And I think, like I said in the teaser trailer reactions, Dave and John are doing their best to make the sequels make sense and play a huge damage repair campaign. Honestly, one of the best scenes with Pershing in this episode is his intro scene where he's talking in front of the entire opera house. That scene where he's explaining how cloning they can now completely remake someone from one strand of DNA, I believe, is to show that is all leading to making that silly ass line somehow Palpatine return makes sense. So, I always say in Dave and John we trust, we shall see. They're going to have to work hard to fix many, many issues in the sequels, and we shall see if it works. So I believe in the overall picture, y'all, the reason I've said all that, I think in the overall picture that this episode is going to be very important for explaining things. I think the Bad Batch Season 2 Episode 13 is also the same way. Both of the episodes were very weak standing alone, but I think in the story of the Bad Batch, that the episode that came out today was necessary. Episode 13 to set up the finale episodes. And I think for making Palpatine's return make sense, the sequels make sense, and whatever happens with Dr. Pershing makes sense. His motivations were all set up by this episode. And I think, of course, this episode will be necessary in the long run, but standing on its own, this episode was not great overall. Which is sad because this is the longest episode of the entire Mandalorian series we've gotten this far. It beats out Season 2, Episode 1 by about 5 minutes. And yeah, so I don't know what else to say. Standing alone, it's weak compared to the others. I feel bad doing this, y'all, but I am going to give this episode a 6 out of 10. The Mando parts really help it out a lot, him becoming back into his cult, which I don't think that's going forwards. That's kind of backtracking for me, but we'll see. We'll see. We might have this might be a whole season where he's still all horny about having his helmet on. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. If you feel the same way. I think a lot of people are gonna probably feel the same way. I do have to give it props though for that line about demilitarization. I think that is Mon Mothma's biggest mistake. If y'all liked the video, make sure to like the video, hit the bell to stay notified for more videos. I will see y'all again very soon. Peace out.